Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praise, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rakaha, Badashi. Double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone who rule well. Peace and salutations unto the elect of the nation of Israel. This is your brother Ayash Kabar from the GMS Virginia camp coming at you with another lesson that I pray that you find edifying through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai. The book of 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 and verse 6. Therefore, let us not sleep as do others, but let us watch and be sober. These are the words of our Lord, to, watch what's going on in the world and align what's going on in the world with the scriptures so that the hopeful elect, or the elect as I should say, shall not be confounded by the events that are coming. The thing is, 2/3 of Yasharallah is asleep, in the sense that they actually think that this kingdom is going to last forever. Nothing's going to happen. The prophecies aren't playing out. There's no such thing as this or that. And in that, their eyes have been shut to the prophetic events that are going on, and such that they just don't believe. And the belief in the things that are coming and the things that are here are so important to the uplifting of your faith. Because if you believe in the words of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, and if you believe upon his names, or the names of Yahweh Yahushai, then you have a foot up on anyone of Yasharallah, who don't believe at all, and it's a very fearful thing to fall into the hands of the true and living power. The book of 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 and verse 6. Therefore, let us not sleep as do others, but let us watch and be sober. 2/3 of the nation of Israel are asleep, spiritually asleep, in the sense that they don't believe how bad it's going to get, and they just can't comprehend the level of anger that Yahweh Hashem Yahushai has with these other nations, as well as 2/3 of his own people. A lot of these people don't realize that they were born in vain, because they're spiritually dead, and the judgments that are rising, I'm not even going to say that are coming, the judgments that are rising in the world will only get worse. And it's going to get to the point where the judgment is going to get so great that at some point 2/3 are going to start to have this thought in their mind. Well, hold on one second. This is far beyond what this devil, is able to do. Maybe there is a higher power that's making these things happen. And in that, it's going to be too late for a lot of them. We don't care about the heathen nations. This is strictly about Yasharallah. Even though we don't care about the heathen nations are going to get it as well for what they did unto the nation of Israel. So, Yahweh Hashem Yahushai had warned us, to watch as well as pray, stand upon our tower, and wait for what he shall say unto us, and what Yahweh Hashem Yahushai has been saying to his prophets to warn you people about is the time of Jacob's trouble, the time of the MOTB, the time of the economical collapse, because be rest assured this economy is going to collapse. Be rest assured that the mark of the beast is upon us. Be rest assured that civil unrest is right here at your doorstep. Be rest assured that the famine of the word is coming, that, this devil's going to kill the power and cause a lot of people to just die. And not only is there going to be a famine of the word, there's going to be a famine of food. Be rest assured that a lot of people are going to starve. Be rest assured that cannibalism is coming back. Be rest assured that a lot of these women are going to be had in derision, be hunted down as the mire in the street. Be rest assured that World War III is right here, waiting to kick off. Be rest assured that wars and rumors of wars have been playing out for a very long time. So all of these are prophetic events that you can actually turn on your TV and listen to and correlate it with the scriptures. But 2/3 of you Jakes ain't paying attention to this because you sleep. You know, you have been drunk with your everyday lives. You know, you you literally have been indignated with the cares of this world, that you are spiritually are that you are spiritually discerned to the words of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, and that you're going to be caught unawares by the calamities that are coming. And even though you're going to be confounded by the calamities that are coming, these things are happening at a pace that you can actually look at it and see. For example, I pulled up this article. The United States is falling. The United States is falling apart, and the whole world is taking notice. So this is dated back in February, and these images were taken back in February. And the thing about it is, Yahweh Shem Yahushai is showing us, even though it's at a fast rate, to the spiritually minded, he's also allowing you spiritually discerned people to see these calamities happen. So even though this image was taken in February, it was known to you back in February that America was falling apart. It was even known unto you even before February. It was known to you in 2024, 2023, 22, 21, 20, 19. You have, Salak, you have seen the progress of a fallen nation, and you have lived within it, and you Jakes just don't comprehend how bad it's going to get. Here it is. You can wake up every day, day to day, for as long as you've been able to work and actually see how bad it's getting over time. In other words, you've seen the progression of how hard life has become for you, Jakes. But yet and still, you have become spiritually discerned to, the words of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai. In fact, what you do is you use carnality to come up with a solution as to why, your food costs so much, rent is getting so high, it's hard for you to get a job, the educational system is really fucking you people up to the point where, they're teaching you bullshit. These are the things that the world are teaching you to be concerned with, when in fact Yahweh Hashem Yahushai is warning you that these are the things that are prophetic to show you that Babylon the Great is fallen, and you have not taken heed to that. Even though, you Jakes have actually seen how bad your lives have become, a lot of you, 2/3 of you, just don't care. You actually think it's something else. In fact, you Jakes are so destroyed that you've actually found other ways to make some sort of means of making your life more comfortable by finding bullshit, to take place of your torment. Jake is hurting, but somehow, some way, a lot of you Jakes find ways of making your lives somewhat decent, even though it's crumbling around you. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like, that band, that was on a Titanic. Here it is, the Titanic was sinking and people were running amok, but, you still had that piano band, you still had the musicians out there, playing music to somehow make the situation better. It doesn't make the situation better. In fact, all it does is causes you to, how should I say it? All it does is causes you to find another way to make a, fucked up situation better. So while the band is playing and the sinking ship or the ship is sinking, you're going to find time to want to sit in front of the band and find some solace out of your chaos. And And that, and then in itself, is going to cause a lot of you people to be destroyed instead of seeking Yahweh Hashem Yahushai. I pray that that made sense. But nonetheless, this place is falling apart. I'm not going to read into the articles, but, I'm just going to bring out the bullet points pertaining to the articles. The United States is falling apart on every level. The financial situation, as a matter of fact, we can go into the financial situation, but before I do so, let me break out these precepts. The book of Jeremiah, chapter 49 and verse 6. Thy terribleness has deceived thee, and the pride of thine heart, O thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rocks, that holdest the height of the hill. Though thou should have made thy nest high as an eagle, I will bring thee down from thence, saith Yahweh Hashem Yahushai. And that's what the Lord is doing. The Lord is bringing down the pride of, Babylon the Great, which is the nest of Esau Edom. Yahweh Hashem Yahushai is showing the world that, this is what a kingdom should not be like. This is what happens to an unrighteous kingdom. And this place is being brought down to the ground on a lot of levels. This place is becoming a desolation even before the nuclear destruction is coming. And Yahweh Hashem Yahushai is doing it in such a beautiful way that he's making it known, that, he's very unpleased with this place, with the floods and, the rotting of these bridges in these streets. Yahweh Hashem Yahushai is just like, yeah, okay. You call this the pride of your, you call Babylon the Great the pride of your kingdom. Okay, then I'm going to bring your pride very low. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of these places that's being hit is being, that's being populated by Esau Edom. And you're going to see that here real soon, that a lot of places that are being hit in Babylon the Great is being, the places where Esau Edom resides. So they're going to go through their trouble as well. It's going to be Esau's trouble as well. It's going to be Moab's trouble as well. It's going to be, these other heathen nations' troubles as well. But for the point here in this lesson, Yahweh Hashem Yahushai is bringing this place down because of what they did to Yasharallah. So I spoke about the financial system. Oh, well, I got one more precept. The book of Jeremiah, chapter 49 and verse 17. Also Edom shall be a desolation. Everyone that goeth by it shall be astonished, and shall hiss at all the plagues thereof. As the title reads, the United States is falling apart, and the world is taking notice. These other nations are astonished at how fast Babylon the Great is falling. And they're actually starting to hiss at this place to the point where, even the small nations are starting to say that I'm great. Anybody who have left Babylon the Great and, have actually commuted, to these other countries, see how much of a third world Babylon the Great has been, or is. Even, and it's crazy, even at the decadence of this place, when you go to these other nations, like Japan and China and, wherever it is, Bahrain or Dubai or wherever it is that you go, you soon realize that not much attention has been put on the infrastructure of this place. Because when you go to these other countries and you ride the subway systems, and it's like, hold on one second, how is it so that a nation that is not as rich as Babylon the Great have such technologies and transportations that is like damn near 100 years beyond what I've been riding in Babylon the Great? They got bullet trains and they got, automated systems, and, a lot of these places are just fucking beautiful. But when you come back here to Babylon the Great, you soon realize that not much attention has been paid to the infrastructure of this place. because it was never meant to be put into the infrastructure of this place to have it, whereas, it would be a place of a perpetual, enjoyment. Babylon the Great was set up primarily as the prison place for Yasharallah. Our wardens and our officers that put us in check don't care about the infrastructure of this place nor the people of Yasharallah. And this is one of the things that's going to mess up a lot of you Jakes, because you're going to soon realize that you're in your prison. You're in your prison. And this place was never meant for you to enjoy what the other nations have enjoyed. Not in this lifetime, but in the kingdom to come, yeah, you're going to have rulership over these nations. But I'm going to get into the financial situation. So this is out of The Economist, and it says, America's financial system came close to the brink. Well, it came close to the brink of what? Chaotic markets threaten to trigger a full-blown crisis. And this is dated April 10th, 2025. So this was just a few days ago, where Babylon the Great was almost at the point of a financial collapse because of what the president is doing as far as these, as far as these tariffs. And these other nations ain't going for what Babylon the Great have been pushing over the decades, damn near over the century. These other nations are starting to realize that, hey, we don't need you. Even though, you have your monetary system, we have gold, we have technology, we communicate with each other. In fact, you're treating us so bad that you're causing us to join together amongst the other nations, to circumvent what you have been using against us for decades. And that's what Babylon the Great is, because these other nations are starting to hate the whore. And all of this information is online for you 2/3 Jakes to read. But you're still asleep, because you're not paying attention to the prophetic events that are happening around you. And the Lord spoke of these things that are happening even today, about these financial collapses and how these other nations still hate the whore. The book of Zephaniah, chapter 1 and verse 10. And it shall come to pass in that day, saith Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, that there should be a noise of a cry from the fish gate. And the fish gate is your major marketplace. In these times it would be Wall Street, the NASDAQ and all that other shit, like even over in Europe and stuff like that, when they have, like the futures markets and stuff like that, which opens up before Wall Street opens up, to give Wall Street, or to give you an idea of how Wall Street would operate. Well, all of these things are the fish gates. This is where the main people buy and sell. Going back into Zephaniah 1 and 10, the noise of a cry from the fish gate, and the howling from the second, and a great crashing from the hills. And what that's referring to is how this place is just gonna collapse. It's just gonna have a financial crash. We're already in a bubble. We've been in a bubble for decades, but they've manipulated the markets in such a way that until it's time for them to implement the MOTB, and in time, and also until it's time for when they got their infrastructure in place, they're going to keep these markets going. But once everything is in place, once they've gotten their things in order to combat the straight up anarchy that's about to take place, they're going to keep this place going. But when it happens, it's going to happen, and it's going to happen quick, and a lot of people are just going to be caught unawares, and you Jakes are still sleeping behind this, even though the prophets of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai out there on the highways and byways warning you of these things. Jumping back to the book of Zephaniah 1 and 11, how ye inhabitants of Mektesh, For all the merchant people are cut down, and they that bear silver are cut off. And you could consider Mektesh in these times Wall Street. So hey, Babylon the Great came so close, at the early parts of this month to having a financial collapse that it would have just caught a whole bunch of people off guard. But the men who have been out there on the highways and byways who are watching for these things won't be caught off guard, because the Lord had told us to stand upon our watch, pay attention to what's going on so that when these things happen, you're not being caught unawares. And also another thing that's happening in the world is, these storms and tempests. These storms are becoming more and more greater. As a matter of fact, this is dated 23 hours ago, and the title of it reads, Early April tornado outbreak spawned EF3s in 5 states, over 130 twisters confirmed in the South, Midwest, and in the South and in the Midwest. Slovakia. When have you ever known of a time when twisters have been this great and Babylon the Great happening at one time? Less than 3 weeks after a major outbreak, another rash of tornadoes tore across parts of the South and Midwest in early April 2025. That included over 3 dozen strong twisters. And this devil tells you exactly what's about to happen before it happens. For example, last year he had a movie called, Civil War, and then shortly after that you had another movie called Twisters, and then shortly after that, you had movies that dealt with zombies and outbreaks and all of these calamities that are happening today. So these devils tell you exactly what's happening before it happens. Toward the latter part of 2024, the big thing was, power outages and cyber attacks and, all of these things. Well, all of these things are going to happen. Why? Because these devils have got to tell you what's going to happen before it happens. That's just their order out of KO type deal where, they just got to, do these things. Salakia, but nonetheless, a lot of these things that are happening in rural areas where Esau Edom resides. Well, what's going to happen? What's going to happen is a lot of these people are going to fucking get upset at the system for not helping them. Here it is, this evil ruler over here in Babylon the Great can send relief money over into these other countries, but they refuse to help the people here in their own country. And a lot of people are starting to get wind of that. A lot of people are starting to realize that they've been dealt a wrong hand. A lot of these people are starting to realize that this isn't what they voted for. A lot of people are starting to realize that, the money that, this devil has been taken from them through taxes or other means or whatever isn't being reciprocated back into the systems that they need for relief. And that's going to cause other problems over here in Babylon the Great. And it's only gonna get worse. And as it gets worse, the people will become more and more upset. And Yahweh Hashem Yahushua told us of these things. The book of Isaiah, chapter 29 and verse 6. Thou shalt be visited of Yahweh Hashem Yahushua of hosts, with thunder and with earthquake, and with great noise, with storm and tempest, and the flame of devouring fire. And that flame of devouring fire are those ICBM missiles that these other nations are gonna, send over here to Babylon the Great, and that's gonna be like the ultimate, judgment of this place, where Yahweh Hashem Yahushua will leave 2/3 over here and melt them. He said that out of his own word, out of his own mouth. I will leave you there and I will melt you. So, and it's a beautiful thing that, you know, all you really got to do is go into the news and correlate that with the scriptures to get a very strong idea of what time that you're in. You know, the elected and the hopeful elect are paying attention to these times so that they're not being caught unaware. But 2/3 of you jakes ain't paying attention. You know, here it is. You know, you got these women still out there trying to get fucking free dinner dates, you know, instead of looking for a man of Yahweh Shem Yahushai, you know, before the evil day draw nigh, you know, because we were commanded to, you know, search for the Lord before the evil day draw nigh, because that's our husbandman. But these women were also commanded to seek their power, which is a man of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai before the evil day draws nigh. It's gonna be very hard, you know, in these times that are coming for women to get a man, you know, because very soon a lot of these women are going to be used as commodities. A lot of these women are just going to be judged. A lot of these women are just going to be fucked up. You know, a lot of them are going to starve. A lot of them are going to eat their children. A lot of fathers are going to die because of the famine and the wars. You know, and these are the things that Yahweh Shem Yahushua warned us about, that he put into the mouths of the prophets to go out there on the highways and byways to tell you about. So, you know, we're definitely in those times, and all of these things are happening while you 2/3 Jakes was sleeping. You know, so while you were sleeping, all of these things are happening right around you, and you just don't understand the severity of the situation. But very soon, a lot of you will seek the Lord early, and it's going to be too late for a lot of you people. Now, you know, Yahweh Shem Yahushua can open up your eyes even during these calamities. But for a lot of you, you know, it's going to be too late, you know. So with that, I pray that you found this lesson edifying through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahushua. And until the next time, I'd like to give all praise, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone who rule well. Peace and salutations unto the elect of the nation of Israel. Shalom.